On this issue of immigration, he has been an obstacle to fixing this problem. My proposal includes strengthening what we must do.
Look, you can't ignore the, frankly, pretty stark irony here. Kamala Harris called Trump an obstacle to border security, and now reports are suggesting we've actually achieved the, quote, most secure border in American history under him. For me, this feels like, well, relief, real strength restored after what felt like chaos. It's about measurable results.
Measurable, okay. But I have to push back on that phrase, most secure. I mean, that claim sounds, frankly, chilling when you think about how that alleged security was achieved. We're talking about families ripped apart. This idea of security, the so-called victory, it feels like it breeds isolation, doesn't it? It prioritizes keeping people out over, well, basic humanity. Where's the integrity in that? Is that the measure we want?
But the measure is security. That's the primary function here.
Okay, let's move to the rhetoric then.
This is what happened. People's rights started getting taken away. People got accused of being immigrants. What I'm saying is that this is how authoritarian regimes do it.
Governor J.B. Pritzker, his warnings, comparing some tactics, allegedly, to, historical dark times like the 90s. I think those are stark, yes, but maybe necessary. It's about waking people up, right? Protecting vulnerable communities from language that genuinely feels dangerous and dehumanizing. It's about stopping history from repeating itself, isn't it?
Necessary? I don't know, especially when he then turns around and says the very idea of dangerous illegal immigrants is, quote, a fake idea. A fake idea, really? Let's look at the numbers. Reportedly of the, more than 480,000 undocumented individuals arrested under Trump, allegedly 70% had criminal charges or convictions. 70! How is that a fake idea? How can you just dismiss the real fear families feel when you ignore data like that? It makes me furious, honestly.
Right. Okay. The statistic is alarming. I grant you that. But isn't that statistic also a product of who they chose to target for enforcement? You target criminals. You arrest criminals. The danger is using those numbers to paint everyone seeking refuge with the same brush. That inflammatory tactic is what Pritzker's warning about. It risks justifying really harsh, broad measures against people who are just desperate. That's where the institutional integrity piece comes in for me. It's about precision, not fear-mongering.
Precision, okay. Speaking of integrity and maybe the lack thereof, we're really glad to be part of the next gen business.
Absolutely.
I want to be very clear. This is not a shutdown caused by the Democrat. We don't want a shutdown.
Representative Gregory Meeks, he claims Democrats don't want a shutdown. Okay, fine. But didn't Meeks literally vote against the continuing resolution like a month or so ago? That was the vote to keep the government open. I mean, come on. The flip-flopping, it just breeds despair, doesn't it? People see that and just get angry at the hypocrisy. Accountability matters.
See, I view that differently. Hypocrisy or maybe a principled stand. Look, sometimes voting against a specific CR isn't about wanting a shutdown. It's about refusing to enable what you see as a relentless opposition or bad policy baked into that funding bill. Amidst all that partisan fighting, sometimes that kind of vote is the only leverage you have. These blame games over procedural votes, they just obscure the real fight for, inclusive solutions and progress. It's strategy, maybe uncomfortable strategy, but not necessarily hypocrisy.
Strategy that shuts down the government? That feels like a thin argument.
She is one of the main culprits of the greatest cover-up and scandal in American history. She took the podium every day and lied to the press about the incompetence of her boss.
The White House press secretary, allegedly saying her predecessor is a, quote, main culprit of the greatest cover-ups and scandals because she supposedly stood at the podium every day and just lied about her boss's incompetence? That's quite an accusation. If that's true, it shatters the faith Americans need to have in that office. We have to demand transparency, objective honesty. How else do we trust anything?
Wow, yeah. Venomous attacks is what that sounds like to me. Look, maybe things weren't perfect, but calling a predecessor a liar and a main culprit in scandals, that feels like it undermines the incredibly difficult job those press secretaries have. They're navigating impossible storms daily. To just dismiss that dedication, the hard-fought battles to communicate something coherent in chaotic times, it just feels like deep resentment, not a call for transparency. It takes a certain kind of courage to stand there day after day, We should recognize that, even if we disagree with the message. Demanding perfect transparency is easy from the outside.
Courage in chaos or covering incompetence? Depends on your view, I suppose.